especially with all that continues to go on in our beautiful yet aching world. Beautiful in that spring has sprung for many of us here in the United States, maybe a little too springy for it to be 90 degrees here in New York City today. Even as some are also experiencing thunderstorms and tornadoes. Believe it or not, some are still questioning if we are indeed having climate change or whether our globe is still really warming. Beautiful in that over 60% of adults here in the United States have received COVID vaccines. Sadly, also some children may be having heart problems from the vaccine. Even as in India, having record numbers of deaths related to the same virus, as many as 60,000 dying over the last many days. Again, the title and theme of today's worship service, Theologies of Our Becoming. Theologies of our becoming. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase? For the theist among us, there must be any number of religious, spiritual, even Christian texts, songs, which have and continue to anchor who you are or are becoming in this beautiful yet sometimes ugly world. For those among us who identify as atheists, agnostics, or a believer in art, music, or science, you too may have any number of sources that have helped to shape who you are or you're working to be in this world. Yet how capable are you to express clearly and with conviction what sources are helping to make you the person you are becoming? Especially now as we need to co-create the world of our dreams. I wanted to expressly thank Sam Kerns, a member of the congregation, for planting the seeds for this service during one of several conversations we've been able to have over the last many months. During one of these conversations, we discussed the religions of our childhood, some ways music can and does impact how we move in the world, and yes, what theological or philosophical renderings have helped to shape our worldviews and our actions in our lives now. Sam shared the quote that was displayed at the start of today's service by Robert Louis Stevenson. Robert Louis Stevenson, a Scottish novelist, essayist, poet, and world traveler who wrote of his travels. The quote again for those who just joined us. To be what we are and to become what we are becoming is the only end of life. Again, to be what we are and to become what we are capable of becoming is the only end of life. Friends, as Unitarian Universalists with a bounty, even a gluttony of theological, philosophical, literary renderings, art, spiritual, historical, and scientific treasures at our disposal to craft, shape, hone, and explicitly talk about what we do believe. Do we believe that our faith tradition can be an answer to what is ailing our beautiful yet pain-stricken world? What if? What if we are living through a never-ending bad dream? What sacred texts within your life have or might help you to live into your own best selves. More importantly, how might they do that now? Especially as many are beginning or continuing to shift towards a new normal filled with more justice, equity, and vitality for all. Can we get a Unitarian Universalist amen?
Amen.
Amen.
What are
Amen.
or have been the theologies or sacred texts of your becoming? What if Unitarian Universalism, as expressed through each and all of us, can be our source of healing in this world and the possibility of a more just world for more peoples and our planet? Please settle in just a little bit more as we share musings of Mrs. Destiny Muhammad, the harpist from the hood, through excerpts from a piece she has created of the same title, Harpist, from the HOOD. We will listen to the spoken word sacred text crafted by Sheikh Ibrahim Farajaje Baba, titled, I Had a Bad Dream, shared and woven through our ministry team today.
I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that lasted too long, that started some weeks, some months, some years, some centuries ago, of way too many people, places, laws, and things telling me that my colored body was not good, that it had no value, telling me that it could not be fat or too tall or too short or too skinny, telling me that bones and wheelchair bodies, bones and braces bodies, deaf bodies, blind bodies were bodies without value, telling me that we could not be colored and cure at the same time, telling me that black and white were only realities, and if we were anything else or more than one thing at a time, or, goddess forbid, too many things, then we were doomed to be erased. Telling me that desire and sexualities were not fluid, telling me that everything had to be either or, telling me that I could not be a shapeshifter, a border bandit, telling me that gender was fixed and that there were only two, and that male definitely equaled superior, telling me that I was confused, telling me that the sharing of erotic power was wrong, telling me that I could not raise my children, telling me that I could not live and work in this country because I was suspect, telling me I could not claim my lover's body because I was not family, telling me that my relationships did not merit any recognition by law, telling me that I was wrong, telling me that I was a shade, a shadow, a half-life, telling me that I should not be allowed to exist, telling me that I had no rights. You know what? I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream. That if I escaped the razor blades and pills of my mind, I could only encounter bigger, more brutal tortures, more constant threats of violence, of annihilation, of massacre. I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that they would still say that there is no such thing as persecution of queers in Gold Mountain.
I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream
that we queers would still say that we didn't care what happened to others as long as we got ours. I had a bad dream that we should say that there is no such thing as queers who need public assistance or queers in prison, that affirmative action is not our issue. Those nasty old isms are all just things of the past. Why don't we just get on with life? After all, the playing ground is already level. Why don't they just stop dividing our movement with all their diversity and inclusion? After all, we're all equal on Turtle Island. We're free and happy. After all, we don't have any political prisoners or prisoners of war here in the United States. Why don't they just stop whining? After all, no one suffers more than we queers. Why can't we all just get along? I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that we would be afraid of delighting in the dazzling display of our differences, and that instead we would run to new closets of, we're just like everyone else. New and renovated closets that would confirm our belief that difference equals wrong. Condo closets that would promise equality if we but erase ourselves. Duplex closets that would close in on us and suffocate us. I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that we would begin to believe, as we have been taught, that spirit and body did not belong together, that body was bad and colored, full of desire, needing to be policed, dominated, and controlled. Just like we had been taught that women and the earth had to be controlled. I had a bad dream that we would forget we were dreamers of the dream, the tellers of the tale, the keepers of the rhythm, the tribes of the moon, the people of the rainbow, a sacred people. I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that the violence against us would increase, that in Oakland and in Richmond.
In the military and in prisons, in Veterans Administration hospitals and in reservations, in breast cancer wards and farm towns, in AIDS wards and homeless shelters, in abortion clinics and parks, in immigration detention centers and sex clubs, in shrines, places of prayer and prostration, and mental hospitals. We could still be lynched and executed at will. Bitter fruits of a bitter tree. I had a bad dream. I had a bad dream that once dispersed to the four directions, we would be forgotten like the countless others, victims of a media whiteout, killed twice, our voices no longer heard. I had a bad dream, but now my sound is carried through you. My bad dream becomes sweet dream as you scream that there can be no renewed hope, no equality and justice for all, as long as there is no equality and justice for all of us. For each one of us, with all of our madly beautiful pieces, parts, fears, contradictions, and dreams, that there can be no postmodern, post-colonial equality and justice for all, as long as our bodies and minds are still colonized, are still kept as someone's occupied territories, as long as dreams are still squashed, as long as queers and Chumash and post-nuclear Pacific Islanders and Bosnians and Filipinas and women with cervical cancer and Miwoks and Yokuts and Iraqis and immigrants and women with HIV, and Chechens and Kashmiris and Filipino Moros, and poor, colored, butch dykes and mixed blood people, drag kings and drag queens and Rwandans and Israeli refugees, and people living with HIV and Palestinians and Chicanas and pagan leather queers and South Asians and people without health care, and intersex and polysex and Puerto Ricanas and transgender Sufis and Black folks and sex workers and Persian Muslims and Ethiopian Jews and Tibetans and Maidu and Pomo and Muslims and people with disabilities and Sri Lankan freedom fighters and prisoners and Asian teenagers and homeless people and Arabs and who knows how many others of all sizes, shapes, colors, and combinations of
all of the above and then some continue to be arrested, continue to be suffocated, continue to be killed. You are my sweet dream. Through you I live on, from generation to generation, from everlasting to everlasting. And fiercely, proudly, tenderly, queerly, I come home to run, to fly, to float, to shout, to say, no more nightmares. Fulfill my sweet dreams.
We are the ones. As Unitarian Universalists or friends of this living faith tradition, again, what theologies or sacred texts grounds your life? As we well know, some of us often state we get to believe what we want to believe. I want to put forth, this is not and cannot be our response to the world's needs for religious, spiritual, or theological grounding, especially now, amen? It is my offer that we not only continue or begin to develop the practices of sharing unapologetically what we do believe through an even more intentional process, individually and collectively as a faith community. To think hard about and wrestle collectively with what sources do anchor what you believe. What more can we as a community be working together on to envision, to explicitly fine-tune what sources beyond our 7 principles and potentially 8 principles and sources that make us who we are as Unitarian Universalists, that we do have strong beliefs in a dynamic, iterative, and life-saving faith tradition, amen? Again, what are the theologies of your becoming? It is time now that we all thrive, for together, growing our individual and collective messages of not only personal liberation and freedom, but of our collective freedom in a world that needs more of our saving, alive and demanding faith tradition. For at its best, Unitarian Universalism, when lived into its highest aspirations, does save lives. We shall be known by the company we keep. May it be so. Blessed be. Ashe and amen.